welcome back to today's Love Transformation class. Now, one of the interesting phenomena about relationships when we're on this soulmate journey is we can feel like we have everything in our life kind of together. We can have our career sorted, we can have our life all organized, and then we find that a totally different person shows up when we start dating. It's just like, I don't even know myself. Our behaviors can be a little bit off. And the concept of the queen energy is something that I'm really excited to dive into with today's expert. And yeah, you're going to learn so much about this and the ways that we can really beautifully magnetize a gorgeous man. Welcome, Camille.
Thanks so much for having me again. I always love our interviews, so I'm really excited to be here.
Now, we've spoken for countless hours about relationships and energies and embodiment and all of that. And as a personal friend, obviously, I have a good understanding of the wealth of information that you have on this topic and the kinds of women that you work with. For our audience who didn't meet you last year or the year before that, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So I'm a love and success mentor for driven, ambitious women who really want to have the cake and eat it too, as in they want to have a thriving career and business, but they also want to have a deeply connected, passionate relationship. So a lot of my clients also want to have a family, but they've left it a little bit later because they have been so focused on their career or their freedom of travel and exploring the world, which is something I did. And I help them in attracting a great partner slightly later in life for a lot of them, so they can still have a family if that's what they choose to do. So that's sort of it in a nutshell.
And this is also lived experience for you, right? Because as a business owner, as a mum, tell us a bit about your journey manifesting a husband and having a baby a little bit later.
Absolutely. So this is such a proud story of mine because it's a bit of it was a real dream come true in regards to having Jasper. So Jasper is now nearly 4 and I had him at 44 and we did do IVF, but I ended up using my own eggs, so which was also a bit of a miracle because the percentage of success was meant to be less than 5% in my age group. And the reason why I decided to have a child that late was I really actually didn't know if I wanted to have a child for a very long time. It wasn't until I was about 40 that I decided I really want to be a mum. And Alex and I were already together for about 9 years at that time. So we've been together for about 15 now. But that was a really big theme around, I just didn't have that. Being a mum, it just didn't seem to be this inspiring thing because I didn't feel like I had a really amazing role model for a thriving woman who loved being a mum but also had a great career. So that's something I needed to do quite a lot of work around, really resolving those inner conflicts and realizing that it's not just having one or the other, and I'm going to do motherhood my way. It's going to be different to what what how my mum did it, or other women that do it totally differently. So it's something I'm definitely passionate about because it goes under it's the bigger theme around where we can have our dream life. It's going to look different to someone else, and we need to really look at our resistance and our inner conflict in order to get what we really want and really dive deep, that's where personal development comes in.
I just absolutely adore the fact that you're such a beautiful role model for all the women in your community who also aspire to have career or their own business and have a family. And get married a little bit later in life, and that it absolutely is possible. And one of the key things that you shifted and one of the things that you teach is about the archetypes. And specifically, we're going to talk a bit today about the princess and the queen energy. Where would you like to start with that?
Let's dive straight in because it's actually a theme. There are 3 main archetypes that I work in my business, and but we could go into that a little bit later. But really the bigger theme that has only really just come out recently is that a lot of my clients really feel, even though they are often in mostly in their 30s, 40s, sometimes 50s, they there's still a part of them that doesn't actually, they don't feel like they're a woman yet in some stage, even though as crazy as that might sound. There's still areas where they feel, I'm still a little girl. So how I then describe it is like they're very much in the princess area, energy, but not in the queen energy yet. And the princess energy is very, she's got a sense of who she is. She's aware of her, her sexual powers. She does. There's a sense of connection. It's not totally non-existent, but it often lacks a sense of groundedness. So a lot of my clients, they tend to just have this slight scattered energy, or they get distracted easily, or they really find it hard to just be with themselves, because it's nearly like they don't know who they really are on a deeper level. So the queen archetype, and why she's so magnetic once we really embody her, and it will look different to everyone. Like, you'll have your own unique flavor of that queen archetype. I'm not saying like we all need to be this queen archetype in a certain way. It will look different to everyone. But the great thing about that beautiful archetype, it's about just really feeling grounded and feeling at home in our bodies. We don't have anything to prove. It's very much an energy of, I know exactly who I am. I've got a deep, and it's not even a mental energy. It's more around like, I really can feel it. I know it from the inside out, and I can operate from that space. I can be fulfilled in my own world, and I can be magnetic from that space of really feeling grounded. And it does have a slightly, some women might be a little bit resistant to that energy, because it's not the little girl or the princess energy anymore. And I needed to do a lot of work around that too, because my princess was really strong, and I loved the attention of a lot of men, and I had a lot of flings in my 20s, and I loved being the center of attention all the time. And I'm a Leo as well, so that probably doesn't help. So and that's probably part of my reason why I became a mum so late. So I associated that queen energy with, it's a little bit more boring. It seems a little bit less, not as exciting, but it doesn't have to be like that. So it's very much about feeling really congruent, really at home, really empowered from that space of, I know my worth. I can feel it in my belly. And that's such a magnetic energy to have when we want to attract a great man, especially a high quality man who is not the guy who just wants to have a bit of fun. We need to embody more of that.
I think a lot of us feel like, especially in those early stages of dating, like it has to be enjoyable. We want it to have lots of lightness. We want to have good banter, and for it to be infused with jokes and not be too serious, and to allow our playful side even to kind of come out, because I think we're used to expecting that playful side is slightly flirtatious, and that's attractive. So how do we balance that lightness and playfulness with still being in the queen energy?
It's such a good question. So the lightness and the playfulness, I would call that it's part of the seductress archetype, which I help women really bring that out, that sexual confidence. So that is definitely needed, and that's joyful energy, that's creative energy and passionate energy. That is absolutely vital, right? And not just for dating, but we want to feel that spark. It is creative sexual energy, I would call it. The difference is when that sexual playful energy is more from the princess energy. It's a bit scattered, and it's a bit sometimes maybe put on rather than really authentic. And a guy can feel whether we really, it comes with the embodiment of being able to really feel comfortable in it and being authentic in that, rather than like, I've got to do this move, or stand like this, or play with my hair because I've been told that that's sexy. So it's an authentic expression of that flirtatious energy, and it's not about manipulation. that would probably be one of the differences. And again, the scatteredness would be more around I'm just sort of imagining like some women out at a bar, you know, the kind of women, and no judgment at all. Like, it's not about any right or wrong, but the princess flirtatious energy would be more a woman who would just sort of chat to some guys, and then she would chat to some other guys, and then, you know, she would check her phone, and it's all a bit like it's a scattered energy. Where that more embodied queen flirtatious energy, I guess maybe there would be a little bit more of that leaning back, a little bit more of the mystery as well, just really feeling comfortable, not saying anything sometimes, as well as having lightness and enjoying the flirtatiousness. I hope that that's given you a bit of an example of that.
I'm thinking in my mind, it sounds like the princess is still more in her head,
yes,
than the queen. So
that's a really good way of describing it too. It's more of a mental energy, but it's less embodied.
So how do you teach your clients to be more in that queen energy?
There's a few layers to it. So there's 3 archetypes that I work with, which once there's a good integration and flow between the 3 of them, one is that sexual confidence. So unless a woman is really feels beautiful in her own skin and feels comfortable even with that flirtatious energy, and she feels beautiful, then it's harder to really be in that space. So the second archetype is all about having really high standards and clear boundaries. So that's more around the boundaries and being is around the heart energy, and it's about receptivity and vulnerability. And I think you talked to a couple of the amazing speakers more around that vulnerability piece, so I won't go too much into that. And again, to give you a more tangible example, it's like once the sexual energy and the heart energy is really connected, including the solar plexus, which is more around that real sense of self and strong boundaries. Once that energy flows and is integrated, that's when we really become more magnetic, and more that queen energy just starts to show a lot more. So it's about the groundedness, it's about our heart being open, you know, and not guarded, and our ability to receive and be in that more softer feminine energy, as well as the really strong boundaries and the high standards. So again, once those 3 energies flow beautifully, there's just something about women who have that. And men often don't even know what it is. It's just like there's something about her. And some women, some of my clients, they're really strong in 1 or 2 of them already, but maybe the vulnerability piece is missing. So they're very sexually confident, they have really high standards, but men can't feel that softness, or they're really in touch with their softness and they have high standards, but there's none of that sexual confidence there. So again, that's then when it turns more into maybe friendship, rather than, you know, the chemistry won't be there as much because the potential partner just doesn't feel, you know, then it's like, well, I can't really have fun with this woman. You know, she's really spiritual, she's really connected, she's got high standards, but, you know, I can see her more as my friend or colleague. So it's the integration that I'm really, really passionate about, and that's when it really starts to flow, and it's a beautiful, enjoyable energy for us to experience, regardless whether we want, you know, to have a attractive relationship or not. It's just a really empowered space to be in.
Is there anything else about this queen energy or this queen archetype that you feel is really important as far as magnetizing a partner?
I guess from the queen energy, it is very much about taking it quite slow at the beginning, and enjoying that dance of I call it the tango of love, you know, the dance of really taking things quite slow and building the foundations. I guess from that queen energy too, when we aren't in a rush, because we generally are feeling connected to ourselves, we feel good regardless. So that's where it becomes magnetic. So it's more around bringing the experiences or the opportunities our way rather than chasing. And maybe one thing to dive into, even though they're all feminine archetypes, I do also think it's important that we integrate our masculine and our feminine as well, because we do need our masculine energy in regards to we don't want to lose that drive for what we really want in our business and career. So again, it's about that integration of having that flow of those two energies as well, because when we're only operating in the feminine, sometimes we can lose ourselves a little bit in regards to our mission for our other areas in life as well.
So we chatted a little earlier about the little girl energy, the princess energy, and the queen energy, and how often we find that our princess energy starts controlling things. We talked about, feeling a little bit more grounded and present, so the princess energy is a little bit sort of scattered. What else might we notice in our dating and relating experience with men, and particularly how men might respond if we are showing up in princess energy as opposed to queen energy?
Yes, good question. So I think the main thing is even though they like that princess energy, they don't take us quite as seriously. So you might often, on a lot of my clients, when they first come to me, they often attract men that they have a lot of fun. They're sort of the charmers, but then they won't message consistently, or they will just sort of disappear. And it's nearly like, oh, well, she seemed really fun and light, and they don't take us as seriously, and they might not even know why, but it's just like, oh, well, yeah, she's just passing through. It's that kind of energy. It's that she's not really, I can't feel home with her. So there's less commitment, there's less desire from them to really to go deeper. That would be one example.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful distinction. And that's why it's so important that we notice our patterns, right? When we notice, like, what's the experience for me that kind of keeps repeating? I meet a man and then this happens. It makes it really easy to then identify, okay, what's the thing that I can then now work on? Is there anything else that you would like to add as far as sharing about these beautiful archetypes and the archetype of the queen energy?
I think just one thing that popped to mind when you just shared, when we talked about that example, is a good way to look at it, and I maybe touched on it a little bit. It's we as women hold that space for a potential partner to really feel home. Men are so much in their head, and unless they feel that energy of groundedness and warmth, as well as the everything else that we have as amazing women, they just don't feel actually safe themselves with us. And unless we can feel that within ourselves as women, like sometimes in my coaching sessions, I might do some mirror work, or a lot of like tuning into body sensations. And unless we can feel it and stay present with our emotions, stay present with ourselves, a guy won't be able to stay present with us either. So we want that deep connection. We want that presence. We want someone to reach out and have that consistent communication. We need to have that with ourselves. And it's not from a mental space. It's really around sitting with our sometimes uncomfortable emotions as well. That's where the vulnerability comes in, really, allowing ourselves to process emotions when they come in, and not constantly distracting ourselves by, I'll go shopping, or I'll eat some more, or I'll go drinking, or we need to really be able to do that. And it's not always fun, unfortunately. There are going to be some days where it's like, I'd rather just go and have fun or go and see a movie, but sometimes we just need to process our inner world. But it's such a magnetic energy. I don't know about you, sometimes when I've gone through maybe a bit of sadness, or recently the grief of my losing my dad, often after crying for a day or so, like, people often say like, wow, you look so beautiful today. And it's like people are drawn to that energy after we release or feel emotions. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. There's a new openness there. And even though it's like, oh, it's not, doesn't feel great to cry, you know, for half a day, especially for a driven woman on a mission who wants to get stuff done, it is part of the puzzle.
It reminds me of a girlfriend of mine who was really sassy and often in her masculine, like really cool girl. And I remember she went through a devastating heartbreak and she was literally broken and in the fetal position. And there was actually a different kind of beauty that I saw about her in this really fragile state. And, you know, for weeks I looked after her and she was just very sweet. And it was interesting to see a different side of her, in some ways a more authentic, attractive side of her than the sassy, cool, like got everything together kind of persona that most people would have known her for.
Absolutely, because it's hard to connect otherwise. Like it's hard to connect when someone is just operating at that level. So I think that's probably the biggest last piece, to really, you know, find a way to connect with yourself. You know, yin yoga classes are great, walks along the beach, sitting under a tree, journaling, movement, dance, but just really, it's really about tuning in and honoring yourself. Even, you know, when you're tired, it's like, yes, you know, honor yourself. You're feeling tired, you don't need to push through all the time. Just have a sleep. Like yesterday, I had a few hours where I actually just listened to meditations, and it was like, part of me was like, oh God, you know, I thought you were going to be more productive, but I was like, no, this feels really good. And then I was productive after that.
Our girls are in for such a treat today because we have so many beautiful experiences with you available for them. And, you know, we know obviously that meditation and visualization is such an important part of this embodying the queen energy. So we have a beautiful meditation right down the bottom of the page today that's with Camille. It's My Time for Lasting Love. I absolutely love this one. We also have a gorgeous guided experience that's in the video directly below this interview today. And then tell us a little bit about the take-home free gift that the girls are getting.
It's called the Magnetic Goddess Activation, and it's a much deeper experience where I'll be guiding you through the process of the inner journey through the energy centers, as well as through a future visualization. But it's very embodied and very connected, you know, very much about the inner world, the embodiment and the sensation. So it's a really, really rich, beautiful meditation process, visualization process. And I recommend doing that when you really have time for yourself, like when you're totally uninterrupted, you want to be able to lie down. So probably best to do on a weekend for that one. So that's definitely a really amazing, powerful one to do.
We have all of your links to your beautiful community. For those of you, especially the women that really identify with what Camille's talked about, perhaps being in of the age where you're really desiring to have it all, have the family, have the career, please go and join Camille's community. Links are beside the video. Thank you so much for coming back, Camille. You are one of my most favorite people in the entire world. So it's always a pleasure. This just definitely doesn't feel like work for me.
Thank you so much.
And thank you everyone for joining us again today. Make sure that you carve out some time to do some of these beautiful meditations and gorgeous experiences. And I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.